As a therapist who works with Gen X women, I've seen how many of us were taught to stay strong, quiet, self sufficient, even at the expense of our emotional well being. But today's younger generation, especially Gen Z, is challenging those old rules. And honestly, there's a lot that we can learn. Hello and welcome. I'm Carol Gavelli, a licensed therapist who supports the emotional health and wellness of women over 40. And in this video, I share 4 things Gen X women can learn from Gen Z when it comes to mental and emotional well-being. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about taking a look at a few overarching characteristics of the culture of Gen Z and how these might support us Gen X women. Let's get into it. The first thing we can learn from Gen Z is how open Gen Z is about mental health, how open they are to speak about it, to learn about it, to share mental health, mental health issues, mental health wellness. When Gen X women were brought up, mental health was either not really discussed or it was seen as something to be ashamed of. If you had depression, you just had to get over it. If you had anxiety, you just had to put it aside. If you had anything that's even more serious than that, then there's something wrong with you. It's your fault. You don't need medication. You could just buck up and deal with it. And Gen Z takes a totally different approach. Gen Z is more open about anxiety, more open about depression, more open about expressing their feelings, more open about therapy and about uh, just mental and emotional wellness in ways that Gen X was taught the opposite. So this is important because a big piece of what keeps people entrenched and keeps women, Gen X women, entrenched in mental health issues is our feelings of shame, feelings of or thoughts of being told there's really nothing wrong with you. You're making a big deal out of nothing, or just go see a therapist already. And when that is brought up, it's brought up in a way that's shameful. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with you for wanting to see a therapist, or that you may need to see a therapist. So I do think that the the Gen Z perspective of being more open about mental health and wellness, being more open about emotional struggles, helps to get on a path of increasing wellness and decreasing the shame, which perpetuates the mental health issues. So I truly think this is one very, very important aspect that Gen Z embraces, that Gen X women can learn something from. The next thing that Gen X women can learn from Gen Z is that rest does not equal laziness. Yes, rest does not equal laziness, which absolutely butts up against what Gen X women were taught and what the Gen X generation was taught. But in terms of Gen X women had to put in 10 times more effort to be taken as seriously as a man was taken. And there was no room for rest or room for backing down or room for sensitivity or emotions or feeling things. Unfortunately, the culture of Gen X taught us that to push forward all the time and to always have to prove that you matter is not healthy. It perpetuates burnout, perpetuates depression, perpetuates anxiety, perpetuates physical issues, physical problems with physical health. What we can learn from Gen Z is that rest is about replenishing yourself. Rest is about getting your bearings. Rest is about gaining perspective. Rest is about taking a moment to really see what is happening instead of pushing forward and being sucked into more stress and upset and anxiety. There is something to be said about following through or following along with the Gen Z mindset of just have to rest. Take the rest that you need, especially at this point in our lives. Gen X women deserve it. Next on the list of what Gen X women can learn from Gen Z is it's okay to express yourself authentically, no matter what your age. When Gen X women were coming up, we were taught there were certain ways to dress, certain ways to behave, certain ways to act, certain ways to put yourself forward. And yes, a lot of that can hold true in terms of adolescence. That's a period or a stage where being part of something, being part of a group and standing out more is usually not embraced. But it seems that in Gen Z, this is embraced more. Individuality is embraced more. Acceptance of other people and how they express themselves, either through what they wear or how they wear their hair, or how they talk, how they walk, how they interact. It's more accepted, and it's okay to accept when people are a little bit different. People are expressing themselves different. People are expressing themselves in their authentic way. And that helps mental and emotional wellness because you're not trying to fit in a box that someone else creates and then you're miserable. You can just be free to be yourself, and everyone has a piece of individuality to express and to share. And Gen X women were often told that they had to hide that individuality. Now I'm talking in general. This is not for every single Gen X woman. There were plenty of Gen X women who did embrace their individuality and did uh, express their authentic selves. But as a culture as a whole, Gen X women were taught you had to fit in a certain box if you wanted this outcome. If you wanted this goal, you had to behave a certain way. You had to dress a certain way. You had to carry yourself in a certain way. And Gen Z just turns the tables on that and says, it's okay. It's okay to get that tattoo. It's okay to get that nose ring. It's okay to have that haircut. It's okay to express and show yourself as who you are. And I think at this point, especially at this point in the lives of Gen X women, that is something we can absolutely embrace, because at this point in our lives, we know or have a good idea of who we are individually and how to express ourselves individually. And if that is an issue, or if that is difficult and you so very much want to, then therapy can absolutely help. But we should, as a generation, as a culture, think about following Gen Z's lead on this and express ourselves authentically so we can feel comfortable with who we are. And finally, the last thing I want to share that Gen X women can learn from Gen Z, and this is my favorite because I see it happen so often and it makes me feel good when I see it happen, is I'll call it the compliment culture. So there are so many times where I'm out in public and let's say I'm online at a store and there'll be a Gen Z person in front of me and they just compliment a random person or compliment the cashier or just compliment someone walking by saying, hey, I like your earrings, or hey, I like your shirt, or hey, I like your glasses, or hey, I like your outfit. And I've seen how it just makes people feel good, and just watching that makes me feel good. And I think that's something that Gen X women can embrace that idea of just authentically complimenting someone else, a stranger, in the moment, just letting them know that, hey, I really like your lipstick, or hey, I really like, the blouse that you're wearing. And it, for the purpose of making that person feel good for, for a moment, or maybe through the day. Maybe they think about it later on, like, oh, that was really nice that someone, noticed, noticed what I was wearing, or noticed, how my hair was. Because Gen X women, a lot of the culture um, revolves around a level of competitiveness, a level of judging other women through our lives, through our, adolescence into young adulthood, into adulthood. And a lot of that can be labeled as internalized misogynism. That would be a video I'll do down the road. And those kind of judgments create a lot of disconnect within a generation of women. And looking at Gen Z and just this idea of just freely complimenting people, freely just accepting how someone looks, and liking it enough to say that to them, and for the purpose of making them feel good, is something that us Gen X women should embrace more, or at least think about embracing more, because it will override some of the uh, messages that we've internalized as we were growing up, that, there's something wrong with other women. And hopefully we can be more united instead of disconnected as a culture of women at this point in our lives. And that's it. That's the top four things that I believe Gen X women can learn from Gen Z to support their emotional and mental health and wellness. What do you think? Did any of these resonate for you? Did you actually see any of these behaviors out and about? Drop me a comment and let me know. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to consider doing a video on, please drop it in the comments as well. If this video did resonate for you, please like it and feel free to subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.